Hey, welcome into Buckeye Huddle Primetime Live on a beautiful Monday night. If you're a loyal Buckeye Huddle subscriber, you didn't click on the wrong channel. I'll explain. My name's JUCK. I have a channel called JUCK on Bucks where I've been talking Buckeyes and college football for about the last year and a half. And I am very excited to say I am also one of the newest members at Team Buckeye Huddle. In my new role at Buckeye Huddle, I'll be doing a lot of different things. But this is Buckeye Huddle Live, where every Monday and Wednesday night, we will be here live during the football season at 8 p.m. If we need to make some changes in the offseason, we will, but there's no need to discuss that now because it is time to roll. The Buckeyes start camp on Thursday, so you can bank on us here every Monday and Wednesday at 8 p.m. right here at Buckeye Huddle. Sometimes it'll be just me. Sometimes one of the crew will be joining me, but every Monday and Wednesday at 8, hope to see you guys here. On tonight's show, super chats are always welcome. I'll be sure to get to those, but I always do close out my live shows talking 5 to 10 minutes to the chat. So you can wait till then when I'm done with everything I got to say, and then pop in there if you want to ask a question or get something on the show. If you are following me from my channel over at JUCK on Bucks over here, and for some reason you're not subscribed already to Buckeye Huddle, let's let them know they made the right decision and go ahead and subscribe right now to the channel. And don't worry, when it's not Monday or Wednesday, we're still going to be doing our regular shows over at JUCK on Bucks as usual. If you're a Buckeye Huddler and you don't know me and you like what you see, you can feel free to subscribe over there at JUCK on Bucks. Add some more content to your rotation. I'm the same guy on both platforms, always family friendly. And over here at Buckeye Huddle, I've been encouraged to basically do whatever it is I've been doing over there. All opinions are my own, of course. All right, there's our setup. Let's get to the show, and thanks so much for joining me, guys, on the new show, as we already got quite a few people in here. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Grok. So Grok is AI on Twitter, like ChatGPT of Twitter. And my friend tagged me with Grok the other day. JUCK on Bucks tagged me. And Grok asked me my take on the 2025 season. And I responded, Kurt Signetti will get humbled again. Kirby will have an arrest. Dabo will say something stupid, and Marcus Freeman will paint his hairline. That was my attempt at humor, but I was really struggling because I knew what Grok was actually asking me. He was asking about Ohio State, and in 140 characters, the reason I started a show is because I have a hard time being short with my stuff. So I don't have 140 characters. I do have a lot to say about this team. So as we head into camp on our first show here at Buckeye Huddle Primetime, I thought I would probably like to sum up what I'm thinking about this team, kind of take stock as to where we're at now, what questions we have, what answers we have. Questions about all the changes that have been made on the staff, about Ryan Day and his personal changes, position battles, position groups, and questions. And I'm going about this judging it with one question in mind. Can this team actually win a national championship? Can they repeat? Or are a lot of Buckeye fans maybe believing that and not really accepting the reality that this is most likely a season where you're kind of shooting for 2026 to be the year to do that? So to answer all these questions in the offseason, I sat here, wrote out the show notes, and I don't think there's nearly as many questions without pretty solid answers as people are making it sound. When I did this show at this time last year before camp, I did believe Ohio State was going to win the national championship. And that wasn't really just a homer take. The last time I picked them before that was 2019. So it's not like I just say every year the Buckeyes are going to win. And I still will never concede that 2019 LSU was one of the best teams ever. Well, maybe one of, but it wasn't the best team ever because they didn't play the other best team ever, as the Buckeyes got robbed out of that game, and nobody can prove me wrong. So I will not concede that. But the 2024 Buckeyes did win the national championship. However, after seeing that first 12-team playoff, I don't know how you feel, but it kind of smacked me in the face that although I do think in 2024 we did see the best team of that year win the national championship, with this new format, I think there's going to be a lot of years where we don't see the team that we consider at the end was the best team win the national championship. I think it's going to be a lot about who's hot in January, who's healthy in January, which we know Ryan Day did a masterful job preparing for all that. All this makes it a lot more difficult to predict before the season. In addition to that, what we got here entering the football season, I think, is setting up entering a season as the most exciting college football season we've ever seen. There's never been anything like it in my life. When we look past, I don't know, 10 years, just we would look at the preseason polls and maybe there'd be 3 teams and we'd be like, okay, the national championship's going to come from these 3. Which one's it going to be? There just aren't these freight train teams that look different than everybody else. When we look at last year, heading into the season, there were 4 teams, Georgia, Ohio State, Texas, and Oregon, and they led at the top of the odds. And I think we all agreed one of these teams can win the national championship. Then there was a little drop, then Ole Miss, then it dropped in Alabama, and then it just dropped off the face of the earth as far as the odds went. I believed Ole Miss was in that group with them. I thought Ole Miss had the coaching and the talent capable of winning a national championship, but that was 5 teams, and that was a lot. As we head into this year, how many teams do you think are capable of winning the national championship? How many could I list? And if you thought about it and said, yeah, okay, I can see it. When we look at the odds this year, there are 4 that stand out, just like last year, and those are Texas, Ohio State, Georgia, and Penn State. And then there's a little drop. The difference here is after that little drop, instead of Ole Miss, there are 5 teams in that next tier, and then it drops off the face of the earth. So after our 4 of Texas, Ohio State, Georgia, Penn State, you got Alabama, Oregon, Clemson, Notre Dame, and LSU. 9 teams that are talented enough with good enough coaching to win a national championship. And the most interesting thing, there's not a single team out of those 9 teams that, when you look at the order of them and you look at people's top 25s, they're all over the place. Usually we can look at top 25s and they'll be pretty consistent as to what, or at minimum, like the 1, 2, 3. The number 7 best odds is Clemson. Clemson is in a lot of people's top 3s. Penn State's a lot of people's number 1. They got the 4th best odds. We don't usually see this. Georgia, outside many people's top 5. Ohio State now wasn't like this right at the end of the season, but now Ohio State is 5 or outside the top 5 in a lot of people's top 25s. There's just so much variance, and it just goes to show that there is no team that looks like that juggernaut. Now, oftentimes we get into a season and get rolling and go, oh, well, yeah, it makes sense. But we can't identify who that team is right now. We can all guess. But there is a reason that the trusty Scarlet and Gray are the number 2 best odds, almost tied at number 1. In fact, they have been number 1 a few times throughout this offseason. But despite that, many across the country, even many Ohio State fans, are doubting that this team, after what they lost from players to staff, can actually pull this off. But even the doubters, I think, concede this year that if Ohio State has answers to some of the questions that they have, this team could not just beat anybody. They could beat the heck out of anybody because of the high-level talent that they do have that everybody knows about. So as we head into camp, what are the questions? What do we know? And if I was to make a case that 2025 Ohio State could be the best team in the country and could repeat, how would I make that case? Here's how. Let's start with the staff changes from the excellent staff in 2024 that I thought was the best staff in the country. I think most people would have agreed. You lose Jim Knowles to Penn State. Uncle Chip goes to the NFL. Justin Fry says, forget this recruiting. I'm headed to the NFL as well. The question, will we see a drop-off? Well, you now got the hottest coach in college football in Ryan Patrick Day, a man with now championship DNA, walking and talking like the best in the game. And he can tell us till he's blue in the face that it's not him that's changed. It's us who are looking at him differently. He's not fooling me. His cadence sounds different. His sound bites sound different. The man just has a different aura of confidence and authority. He owns his program. And our first variable from 2024 to 2025 is the offensive coordinator. Well, Ryan Day's program has an offense. He's an offensive guy. He's not a coach who's going to go hire an offensive coordinator to come in and install his offense, meaning sweeping changes. We're not talking about much change at all. The offensive coordinator, Brian Hartline, that he hired, he's worked with for 9 years, an offensive coordinator who is only coach in this offense, and a guy who's never failed at anything he's put his mind to in his life, who was promoted in 23, could have pissed and moaned when Chip Kelly came in and instead took it as an opportunity to learn. He gets a run game coordinator in Tyler Bowen, whose previous job was as a P5 offensive coordinator, which is great. Some Buckeye fans have doubted Hartline. I've seen a lot in my comments over the summer. He failed at this already. What makes us think it'll be any different? That is not what happened. He was given a promotion before he was fully prepared, and before Ryan Day was fully prepared to relinquish that control to him. Both errors by the boss, and the boss realized them and corrected them. And one thing we've learned about Ryan Day over the years, like many successful leaders, he is a controlling guy. He wants to do it himself. He knows he won't screw it up. He wants to do it himself. But like most great leaders, I think we're seeing him mature in this process in learning how to delegate and trust in his people and trust in himself that he taught his people right. And I think Tyler Bowen adds a great dynamic to the brain trust of Ryan Day, Brian Hartline, Keenan Bailey. We've got a bunch of young guys here, young dudes. Ryan Day's the old grizzly vet, and he's my age. All right, I'm getting a little older, but we're not very old, 45. Most of the country will be jealous of this. I think every fan base wants a group of young, energetic, smart people who've been together a decade, by the way, running their college football offense. Everybody wants that. Ohio State has it. Ryan Day's offensive line hire, replacing Justin Fry, the aforementioned Tyler Bowen, a guy under 40 years old whose resume is just insane. He has been a Big Ten recruiting operator, coached tight ends in the NFL, offensive line, and most recently at Virginia Tech as the offensive coordinator. This guy's excellent. And structurally, what they've put together is so cool. Tyler Bowen's offensive line is the ultimate Ohio State muscle flex. When they relaxed the rule that analysts could now coach on the field, most of us thought that we'd see schools start adding 2 offensive line coaches, 2 defensive line coaches. Ryan Day decided, I'm going to hire an offensive line staff. So Tyler Bowen is the coach of the offensive line staff. And the offensive line staff isn't a couple odds and ends and bits and pieces. It's Marcus Johnson and Charlie Dickey, who had their own offensive line rooms last year. That is the biggest Ohio State muscle flex you're ever going to see. And Tyler Bowen brings in his assistant, Austin Fields from Virginia Tech. Now, what can be tricky here? Obviously, there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen. The number one concern of that offensive line unit was sending mixed messages. We don't want to do this. We need to make sure we're on the same page with everything. And they sat and went over every single technique they're going to teach, decided how they were going to do it, and then they're going to go about it the exact same way. I think that this is the highest level of offensive line coaching we are ever going to see at Ohio State, because the amount of individual coaching going on is going to accelerate every one of those players in their development. I think it's fantastic. Again, not everybody can do this. Ohio State can. This is taking advantage and flexing Ohio State muscle. I love it. On the defensive side of the ball, Ryan Day decided he would like to do what he's done on the offensive side of the ball. And I'm not talking about on the defensive line, though I think a lot of people would like to see that same structure. Eventually, I think we will have it. But I'm talking about offensive or defensive coordinator. So Ryan Day is an OC, right? He's an offensive guy. So the Ohio State offense is the Ryan Day offense. Makes things consistent from year to year, keeps it easy with the players when you switch pieces. The defense Ohio State's been running for the last 3 years has produced a number 1 defense in the country. Everybody knows it's effective when run properly. So we wanted to keep that same framework. However, by doing this, you sacrifice your pool of candidates. You can't just go say, I want the best defensive coordinator, because the best defensive coordinator is going to bring in his defense. And because of that, many people expected he's probably just going to promote Tim Walton or Matty G, some combination of both. Matty G, Jim Knowles' guy, and Ryan Day kind of, we thought, tipped his hand. Remember at the celebration for the national championship when he said Matt G is a rising star in the profession. And it's like, okay, this is all coming together here. That was kind of out of nowhere. And then really out of nowhere, he hires Matt Patricia, one of the most shocking Ohio State hires we've seen. Also incredibly divisive. If you guys recall, that one was not popular with a lot of people. I liked it from the start. I liked it even more the more I've seen Patricia in action. For one, you don't have to sacrifice running the defense. Hey, Matt, can you run this? Absolutely. What can I do with that guy and that guy and that guy, which makes it even the more fun. Honestly, anything Jim Knowles can do, Matt Patricia can do. And I don't mean that as a knock on Jim Knowles. I think Jim Knowles is a top 3 defensive coordinator in the country. But Matt Patricia, just objectively speaking, he's more experienced. He's more versatile. He's more adaptable. This is a guy who was an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator in the NFL. Like, has anybody else done that in the last 20 years? I don't know. I don't think so. But the biggest surprise is the guy's more personable. And the argument that There's some arguments against him. Like, he hasn't been in college football for 20 years. Okay, that means nothing to me. We're talking about X's and O's. He's not a head coach. The argument that he wasn't a good head coach in Detroit means nothing to me. He's not a head coach. The argument that he didn't get hired in the NFL for 3 years. Why didn't he get hired? All this is irrelevant. The only thing that's relevant to me is we've seen this guy coach championship level defense with a good team. And when he's got a good team, when he's got good players, he just runs circles around people. He's now older, wiser, re-energized, seems to be loving life. And I think we're going to love him and his defense this year. I don't know how long he's staying, but if he stays 3 years, I think he's going to be a top 5 defensive coordinator in college football. Absolutely brilliant outside the box, widely criticized hire by Ryan Day. I think he'll be proven very right about this one. And we've already seen Patricia assimilate into the program, seen the reaction from the players, and he didn't even need to bring one of his guys. He's excited to work with the guys that are here, with Larry, with Walt, with Mad Chi, with James. Like, that's a squad, man. That is a squad right there. Takes their input, adapts it into things, and they're going to hit the ground running with this defense. And that wraps up the coaching hires for Ryan Day. So you go from the best coaching staff in college football in 2024. I think most people would say in 2025. Coming into the season, that's going to be Penn State. That's the best coaching staff. And they say that because with James Franklin, you now add on Jim Knowles, and Andy Kotelnicki is a fun name to say. So they've decided that he is the best offensive coordinator. I think the Buckeye staff is right up there with anybody. But let's talk about the players and the player changes, and we'll start on the offensive side of the ball. What are the known quantities? What are the questions? We start where it always starts, at the offensive line. Now, the line we're seeing all around college football is Ohio State is replacing 4 new starters from last year, game 1. And that's the way they're looking at it, with Simmons and Seth and Donovan and Fryer. But that was the week 1 lineup. The lineup we're expecting to see here as the starting lineup in 2025, all 5 of these guys either played a ton of football in their careers already, 4 of them incredibly meaningful, high-stakes football against great competition, and 4 of them played together as a unit. Left tackle Ethan Anyanwa, multiple years as a starter at Rice, looking fantastic, wins the dude of the week last week. Austin Siereveld played a ton of snaps last year as a second-year guy and is now in line to be a captain. He's an Iron Buckeye, versatile enough that he can play right tackle this year, which all signs are pointing to that's where he'll start. And then you got Luke Montgomery on the inside, left guard, experienced the playoff run last year, played great. Carson Hinsman at center, who has a full year of starting experience in 2023 when he was a young pup, and then he got to play from Penn State on last year, and he was excellent. And then Tegra, your lone returning starter at right guard, who honestly, he's the lone returning starter. He's probably lowest on the totem pole right now as far as maybe your confidence meter. If you were going to say, who are you least confident in? I would say Tegra. I think most people would. But I'm also confident that offensive linemen get better every year just based on age, physicality, strength, the more knowledge they gain. And I think that we have no reason to think that Tegra won't be an improved version of himself from what we saw last year. So offensive line changes from game 1 last year to this year, yeah, there's a lot. But how much change is there really? I think performance-wise, we're looking at a top 7-ish outfit in the country. I think that's the floor. And I think the ceiling's quite a bit higher. This is a good offensive line. Moving along. Tight end, any questions? Nope. A great combination of guys with a ton of experience. Will Kazmarek, Bennett Christian, 2 excellent blocking tight ends. You got Jelani Thurman for your versatility. And you would have been hoping this year that Jelani was going to pop, right? We really would have been looking for that, hoping for that. And we still are, but it doesn't need to happen because you bring in the best tight end in the country in Max Clare. In addition to Max, you got a freshman in Nate Roberts, who's a dude, like ready to roll. We're going to see him plenty. It's the best tight end room in the country, maybe the best ever at Ohio State. Let's move to the big time pass catchers, the wide receiver room. Any questions? No, of course not. Known quantities, the best player in all of football leading the way in Jeremiah Smith, the best coach, a projected first rounder in Carnell Tate, Brandon Innes finally gets his shot after waiting his turn. A great leader, slimmed down, looking quicker. And this wide receiver room is just ridiculous. I think that your next three on the depth chart in Mylan Graham, Quincy Porter, and Bryson Rodgers, 95% of college football would trade their three starters for the Ohio State 4, 5, and 6 guy. Straight up. So easily the best wide receiver room in the country. I believe the best wide receiver room in the history of Ohio State football, because you got Jeremiah year 2, a first rounder with him. There are several other first rounders that will be catching passes this year. It's just amazing. It's just amazing. And I continue to marvel at it every year, but it's almost like it keeps getting better. But your pass catching threats don't stop there as you go to your Thunder and Lightning combo package in the backfield. And in CJ Donaldson, you've got a converted tight end who I've watched film. The dude can catch the ball. Best shape of his life, as we see from so many of these seniors who transfer to Ohio State. They just got this like rebirth, man. They come from a school like West Virginia or Kansas State. And it's like they made it to the prime time and they get this extra like want to. And he looked like a totally different guy in the spring game than he looks on his film at West Virginia. I wasn't excited about him at all. I got to be honest. I called him a Jag. His stats, he's a Jag. And then I saw him in practicing in the spring game in highlights. And it's like, this is a different dude. He's got a different mindset. He's moving different. Now I am excited. I think he's going to be a fan favorite too. And then you got permanently disrespected James Peoples. James Peoples is one of these guys that has to have this chip on his shoulder to perform. And it's just like, he thinks he's being overlooked. He thinks people don't believe in him. And he's got that scowl, man. The dude's ready to go. He looks like an absolute tank. He's clearly very skilled. And I think that those two are going to make one heck of a 1-2 punch. In addition to them, freshman Bo Jackson, ready to go right now, physically, maturity, absolutely, in my opinion, the most naturally gifted running back in that room. So questions about running back? No, not at all. Questions about the offensive line? I don't have any. Questions about the running game? No. I think it's going to work out real, real well. And let's not forget the advantage they have by having the very best collection of pass catchers in the country. That sucks up a whole lot of air out of a defense. That's a massive advantage. So all of this on the offense feels like very known quantities to me. I feel like it's not really a stretch to say this offense going to be really, really good. Biggest question, of course, Julian Sayin, who, just for the sake of argument, I'm going to say the starting quarterback. Yes, it is a real competition, as in if Lincoln outplays him, he can win the job. But we could say that about any position where there's a first-year starter. Peyton Pierce could outperform Arvell Reese and win the job. But when we talk about linebackers, I'm going to say Arvell Reese and Sonny Styles, and nobody's going to give me a hard time. Julian Sayin, I believe, is going to win this job. So we're going to talk about it like that. Now, Julian Sayin, first-year starting quarterback. What have we seen out of him? Nothing. We saw him throw 11 passes his freshman year, and then we saw him in the spring game. What do we know about him? Well, he was born to be a quarterback. Since he was a kid, we're talking 4th grade, this kid's been working with the best quarterback coach on the West Coast. It's kind of weird how this goes, but there are like these 5 quarterback coaches, and they all have a region of the country, and they're like the guru of that region. Well, his is the West Coast guy. Been working with him since he was a little kid, drawing up plays on the grease board and everything. In high school, the kid kept an iPad of the defensive coordinators in the league that he would go against. If it weren't for his perceived diminutive size, and people can argue about his height, we heard Jake Butt say he was 5'11" in the spring game. I've been in his presence. I thought he was closer to 6'1" than 5'11", but who really knows? But it's not just that. It's more of his build. He's not very wide. He's kind of an ectomorph. And he's always been that size. And despite that size, he was a top 3 quarterback in this class, no matter where you looked. Nick Saban wanted him to be his next Bryce Young. Ryan Day wanted him bad enough to do something he was very uncomfortable with, and that is taking a second quarterback over Air Noland, knowing, not only was it going to be awkward, but going back on his word, and potentially Air could end up transferring. And he did it anyway. And it kind of says a lot about what he thinks of Julian Sayin, at least coming into it. I really think a lot of the reason that Ohio State isn't getting the buzz nationally is because, and I want to be careful not to compare this too much to Texas and Florida, because we've seen Arch Manning play much more than Julian. And he's a year older. We've seen DJ Lagway play plenty, but those are big, strong dudes. If Julian Sayin was Tavian St. Clair's size, I think this would be a whole different story. Just the physical presence alone. It's tough to get past, and it's tough to get. Well, I mean, the baby face doesn't help. Also, he's a shy guy. All of it just looks like, yeah, I don't know. And I understand. But I think that's a lot of the reason people are doubting Ohio State this year. I really do. I don't buy into any of that. I was 75 to 85% sure this dude was going to be a really, really special quarterback at Ohio State, sight unseen on a college football field. And gosh, this is embarrassing. Seeing him in the spring game, I don't mean like a sprint, but just seeing him in action, seeing him control an offense, it made me feel like a wave of relief. Like, okay, I just needed to see this guy out there. And I wish we'd have seen him more as a freshman. I wish we would have, but we didn't. The best part is he doesn't need to be great. He just needs to be good. And I really believe that a smart quarterback with arm talent, it would be difficult not for him to be good in this offense with these weapons in this coaching. I think 2023 Kyle McCord in this offense would be lethal. I really do. And if I didn't believe Ohio State was going to continue to intentionally limit plays per game, which I loathe, but Ryan Day got proof of concept from that last year, intentionally limiting plays so that overall throughout the course of the season, they played less plays. I just hate it. I get it, but I hate it. But I would totally be on board with Julian Sayin putting up huge numbers in year one. But I don't think he's going to have the opportunity to do that because of the limit in plays. It may take him a little time to get his feet under him like any new quarterback. And I just got full confidence that this is, in fact, a dude Ohio State is rolling out there at quarterback. And that's the offense. Could potentially be a steamroller. I think it's going to be as good as last year's offense from the second half of the season on. And Julian, I think he's going to be good, no question. What can he do under the bright lights in 2-minute situations? That's what we got to see. So that's the offense. You got a number one or a number two group at tight end. You got the number one wide receiver group. You got a very good backfield. You got a very good offensive line. The question is the quarterback and the offensive coordinator, which I have little question about. I mean, I get some people do. I just don't, man. Not with Day there, not with them being on the same page. I just don't. Over to the defense, known quantities. I think you got the best trio of linebackers in the country. And if you're someone who's been around my show for a long time, last year at this time and all through preseason camp, it was about Arvell Reese for me. I'm his biggest fan. I'm sitting on a custom number 8 Arvell Reese jersey right now. Some folks thought I was really hard on Sonny, but I wasn't trying to be hard on Sonny. I was being hard on the coaching staff in their decision not to allow Arvell to kind of grow at the same rate as Sonny. Nonetheless, none of that matters anymore. A8's got what it takes to be a Butkus award-winning linebacker, an absolute natural to position, a physical freak. His instincts are next level. His physicality is scary. And he did nothing but get better all year. And now we get to experience senior Sonny Styles, who talked about at Big Ten Media Days having to think much less before he reacts. And I couldn't wait until he got to that point. I think that point is now. Coming into his own as a leader as well. I love the leader being a linebacker. Then you got Peyton Pierce, underrated as an athlete, also a hammer with incredible instincts. And the way James Laurinaitis talks about Peyton Pierce, it is clear we're going to see a total dude in number 26. And that trio, I wouldn't trade for any trio in college football. And we just keep stacking these groups of elite talent at different areas: wide receiver, tight end, linebacker. 3 starting units that could be the best in the country. Your defensive backfield returns 2 of the 5 starters. One of them, the best defensive player in the game, and Caleb Downs, the ultimate chess piece, the guy that inspires confidence and quarterbacks the secondary, an all-timer, all-time talent. IGB, a physical, annoying, really solid cornerback who most people don't take the time to appreciate that because he frustrates them with the penalties. This guy's made big plays in big games. Let's not forget Penn State and many more. The dude's a big-time player. He really is. Next to Caleb at safety, You got the battle with probably the biggest position battle we got on the team with Malik Hartford and Jalen McClain. Now, exiting the year last year, it looked like Jalen McClain was going to enter spring as the one. That's not what we saw. We saw Malik, Ohio boy, enter as the number one, and he's bigger and he's stronger and he's a hammer. Jalen McClain, also a bit of a hammer, but a smaller dude, more of a ball hawk. I don't think you can go wrong with either of these guys. They're both really, really good players, and I suspect we'll see quite a bit of both of them. And I think we've seen Matt Patricia kind of tip his hand to that as well. And that's great. Both fantastic options next to Caleb Downs, which will just raise their play. At nickel, the most doubted projected starter on the defense, Lorenzo Styles. Now, Sonny at Big Ten Media Days said he's an athletic freak. And I know everybody's going to say, sure, he's going to say that about his brother. I've been saying this for a year now. The boards at the Woody, 12 boards, all the different testing that they do, the physical testing. The only player on the team whose name is on 5 of those boards, versatile, all-around athlete, elite in several areas, is Low Styles. So is he going to be as good as Jordan Hancock? No. But I don't think he's going to be some weak link. And then you got our main man, Jermaine Matthews. The best cover corner in 2024, now getting his shot to start. I think he hits the ground running. This dude's ready to go. And between Jermaine and IGB, boy, you got some annoying dudes. Like they just yap. They're going to be in everybody's head. Other guys who are ready to play right now in that secondary, Devin Sanchez, we'll see a ton of him. Aaron Scott, potentially sophomore Bryce West, who's, giving Low Styles a run for his money. And this secondary rated Phil Steele's number 8 secondary in the country. Again, I think that's the floor. I think that is the floor. I also think Matt Guerrieri and Tim Walton, 2 of the very best. And while there are some questions, again, the best secondary player in the country leading this group, playing in tandem with that linebacker group, that's a scary proposition. Which takes us to the ultimate question on the defense, and that's the defensive line. I did a poll with Buckeye fans. What are you more confident in this year? The 2 assumed starting defensive ends at the time, which was Kenyatta Jackson and Caden Curry, or the interior guys, Caden McDonald and Edric Houston. K-Mac and Edric, the younger guys. K-Mac and Edric won that poll in a landslide. And I was kind of surprised. Now, I felt the same way, but I was surprised that many people saw it that way. I'm also very confident in those 2. But I don't think Kenyatta and Caden are really just the clear top 2 anymore. That was before Bo came on. I think it's now Kenyatta is number 1. And I think that Bo Atkinson and Caden Curry kind of make up your top 3. And that's a really good top 3 with a pretty high ceiling. And Kenyatta could totally pop. Pretty high floor, too, with Atkinson and Curry. That's really good. And then behind them, 2 guys in Logan George, who's your classic all-around defensive end, and CJ Hicks playing in a stand-up, edge rush, pass rusher, situational role. Could be really well. So in the end, you're not in bad shape at all at end. It could really pop. It could be good. Great linebackers and a high-level secondary also going to make their job easier. On the interior is where the biggest concern is. The biggest concern on the team outside of quarterback, not with the starters. Caden McDonald has shown he's a dude. Edric Houston, look, I've not heard anybody doubt that they think Edric isn't going to be excellent. I think he's going to be a top 1 or 2 round draft pick by the time he's out of here. When we look at last year, Ty and Tyleek played 65% of the snaps, which means if Caden McDonald and Edric Houston carry that same load, you need to rely on those backups 35% of the time. You don't have a true 1 tech backing up Caden McDonald. You got Will Smith, who, just moved there, and he is about 285, 290 right now. And just physically, that's a different style player than the 328-pound Caden McDonald. Doesn't mean he can't be effective. He certainly can. We've heard he's making strides. That could be true, or that could be publicly, we need you. We want you. You're doing good. That we see messages sent through the media at times. It could be that. I think we saw a little of that last year with Jason Moore, both through Larry Johnson in the media, and that didn't really pan out at all. And we certainly want it to be Will, because after him, you got second-year Eric Mensah, who doesn't really appear ready, and then freshman Max Roy, and that's it. So Will Smith needs to be that guy, because if he's not, and he's below average, then you've got a huge drop-off between your number one and everybody else, and that should never happen at Ohio State. At 3 Tech, behind Edric Houston, you got 3 candidates, and I actually think it's going to be a combination of 2 of them. Jason Moore doesn't look too close. Disappointing, but I just don't think he is really in the mix here. I think this is Ty Malone, who we've seen pop against Marshall. We saw it. We've seen him make plays on the field. And you're really counting on Edric, Ty Malone, and then I think Jarquez Carter, the freshman, who is a really, really talented player. I think he's probably the best football player of these backups, just a little younger, not quite as physically mature, but he's a guy who can definitely get after the passer from 3 Tech. He can make tackles. I really think that at some point we're going to see him playing quite a few snaps this year. And those 2 sound pretty good. Can these guys work it out? Can they not give up 5 yards a carry when they're giving those starters some rest? Can Julian be that guy? If those 2 things happen, the biggest questions on this team, you got a program with championship DNA, one of the best coaches in college football, a staff that seems to have a whole lot of synergy, 3 position groups that might be the best in the country, and there's more. I actually think this regular season schedule sets up perfect for these Ohio State Buckeyes with the young quarterback, because this schedule, you get to find out immediately where you need to improve, what you're not good at, where you're not good enough at, where you are good enough at as you play Texas game 1. Then you've got 4 weeks before you have your next real test. After Texas, you got Grambling, Ohio, then a bye week, then you fly out to Washington. So not only 4 weeks until Washington, but a full bye week uninterrupted before you head out to a tricky game at Washington. And you know exactly what you need to work on, and I love that. Now, after you go to Washington, a tricky game, you go to Minnesota. Sorry, you're home against Minnesota. PJ Fleck comes in. And then you got your next big test, I think game 6, that would be a physical matchup against Illinois at Illinois. And at that point, we're really going to know where these guys are. And after Illinois, Wisconsin, always a tough trip, but Wisconsin going to be beat up, man. They got a rough go. They got a real rough go. Even still, this is one that if Luke Fickell can pull it off, he literally turns his entire tenure, the beginning of his tenure, around. I think they're going to give Ohio State a good game, just like they gave Oregon a good game last year up there at Camp Randall. They'll be incredibly hyped and hopefully, playing for Luke. I feel bad for him, man. It's just gone so rough, but I'd like to see them. I'd like to see them do a little better this year. I'll really be rooting for them against Alabama. Anyway, Buckeyes get a bye week after that. And that, of course, is a bye week before the big showdown. The big showdown in the shoe against Penn State. At this point, Ohio State most likely is 6-1 or 7-0. Penn State also most likely 6-1 or 7-0. They've got Oregon before Ohio State, but they do host Oregon in a whiteout. So a pretty big advantage there. Either way, 2 of the top ranked teams in the country. And that game's going to be electric. After the Penn State game, you've got Purdue, UCLA, and Rutgers before you head up to Ann Arbor. So the 3 biggest games of the year are game number 1, number 8, and number 12. You've got spacing. You've got a bye week before the Washington game. You've got a bye week before the Penn State game. You've got 3 relatively weak opponents before the game. And you get to play Texas right off the rip to find out exactly where you stand. I love it. And while there are some tricky tests like Wisconsin, at Illinois, at Washington, it just sets up great for a young team. I think if I was to give, we were to sit down with these teams we got to play and try to work this schedule out the best way possible. I think maybe the only thing I would do different if you had to play Texas in games 1, 2, or 3 is I would make them the second game, not the first. I'd at least give them one warm up and then go to Texas. But other than that, man, it's almost picture perfect. And if the quarterback is good, the offense is going to be elite. How's that? How's that for a question? This team's really good, man. The only issue here, what are we talking about? We're talking about reserves at one group, the backup defensive line. I think this defense is going to shut people down. And that's why the Buckeyes are going to be right in the national championship hunt. And if they win the national championship, they cement a mini dynasty and honestly dethrone Georgia as the team. They are officially the unequivocal number 1 team in the country in college football. And that is something that Ohio State's never been in my life. That's the opportunity these guys got. So that's what I got, guys. Boy, you've been busy. That's a whole lot of comments over here. I am going to get to some of your comments. And please like the show if you have not already. If you haven't subscribed to Buckeye Huddle, we have got a goal here that we're trying to get to by the end of the season, and we need your help. I'm new, so I don't know what that goal is, but I'm sure we got one, and we need your subscription. So let's all hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Speaking of that game against Texas, we got another gem out of Urban Meyer's podcast, which is the Triple Option podcast. I've watched the show a couple of times. For the most part, it's not very entertaining. It's not really for me, but there are always a couple of every once a month, like an excellent comment that comes out of Urban that gets flying around. Well, this one came out of Mac Brown. They got Mac Brown. Mac Brown's on there talking about the Ohio State Texas game. And he is talking about what an advantage it is. What a huge advantage it is for Texas to be able to play that game at noon. Of course, Ohio State under Jim Tressel, Texas under Mac Brown, played at home and home. And Mac talked about the game up in Columbus at night as being the craziest atmosphere he's ever coached in. And he went on and on about what a huge benefit this was for Texas. Now, we got Buckeye fans. We've talked about this all off season, not just the Texas game, but Big Noon in general. And every time we talk about Big Noon, there are plenty of Buckeye fans who kind of push back and say, it's not a big deal. I like noon games. And your home field advantage is a home field advantage. It is a tangible difference on the scoreboard. And when you listen to a coach, an experienced coach, say something like that about how much different it is and how fortunate he feels that his team doesn't have to play in that atmosphere, you kind of got to listen, man. A big night game in Columbus is tangible. It is worth points over a noon home game in Columbus. It just is. Now, I railed against Texas for not agreeing to play the Sunday game in the evening. Was that wrong of me? Was that disingenuous? Maybe. But I really think it would only be disingenuous if you asked me the same thing. If the roles were reversed, what would I say about Ohio State? I honestly believe I would say I want to move the game to Sunday night and play Sunday night. I really do. I want to be on the big stage. I want to watch that game at night between Ohio State and Texas. Fortunately, we get to. When it goes to Texas, the return trip's going to be at night. They're not, handcuffed by Big Noon. So we're going to get to see that at night at Texas. But I don't think my stance would have changed on that. I always want to play on the biggest stage. I want to play the toughest competition. That's what I love about college football. Speaking of the shoe, USA Today ranked the top 25 stadiums in the country. They used apparently a methodology to include an intimidation factor and teams that were also the most unfriendly to visitors. So going through this, at number 1, they've got Tiger Stadium. Number 2, Beaver Stadium. Number 3, the Shoe. Number 4, Autzen Stadium. And number 5, Clemson. So LSU, Penn State, Ohio State, Oregon, and Clemson as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's interesting right there. Now, I've been to Death Valley, the real Death Valley, by the way. Clemson is the real Death Valley. It is the real Death Valley because they've been called Death Valley longer. And LSU, in fact, started calling Tiger Stadium Death Valley to mock Clemson after beating them. They just said, we're going to take your name now, which is hilarious because most college football fans, I think, consider Tiger Stadium to be the real Death Valley, but it's not. Clemson is. I've been there, saw a game there, great game. Trevor Lawrence got knocked out of the game, and Syracuse almost beat him. The third string quarterback came in and drove Clemson to a game-winning drive to win that puppy. But I don't know, man. That stadium and the atmosphere and everything about it, like, it was pretty. I like the setting. It's kind of like wide open and you're kind of like overlooking the town, but it's like kind of parallel with it's kind of different. But no, not top 5. No way. So moving on their list, they've got number 6, Neyland South, number 7, Georgia, Sanford Stadium, number 8, Alabama, Bryant-Denny. That's way too high to me for Bryant-Denny. Number 9, Florida. Number 10, Kyle Field, Texas A&M. Then they've got Oklahoma, Michigan, number 12, Auburn, number 13, Notre Dame, number 14, Husky Stadium, Washington, number 15, Texas, number 16, South Carolina, 17, Utah, 18, Camp Randall, 19. Then you got 20, Florida State, 21, Virginia Tech, Lane Stadium, 22, BYU, 23, Boise. Get out of here with that, man. Come on. 24, Kinnick Stadium, and 25, a very underrated one, Oklahoma State, T. Boone Pickens Stadium, where being a spectator would be pretty cool. The stands are like 3 yards off of the sidelines. It's crazy. They are right up on there. But stadiums I would most like to visit, if I've never visited any of these and you were just say, all right, pick 5, you get to go visit. I'm going to LSU, Ohio State, Penn State, Tennessee, and Washington. I've always wanted to go to Husky Stadium. We obviously have the opportunity to go to Husky Stadium and watch the Buckeyes play this year. I think we should all go. I think Virginia Tech would be on my list too. The thing about going to college football towns is there are some, like Penn State, like Virginia Tech, that are just so far off the beaten path that they're probably trips, I don't know if I'll make them. But T. Boone Pickens, that would be cool too. I would love to go to Auburn. Big games at Auburn are awesome. Anyway, that's where I'm at, guys. Let's get to some of your comments and see if you guys have anything to add today. And we will start with our buddy Chris Lane. Chris, thank you so much for the $2. Chris, I made it, Juck Go Bucks. Thank you for joining me, buddy. Juck is all business. Blue Wolverine, thank you so much, buddy. Just stopping by for a moment to show some support. Juck, have a good show. Thank you, buddy. And our buddy Adam, thank you so much, Adam, supporting our guy Juck and family. Good to see you all. Congrats, Juckeye and JuckeyeNation. Thank you, bro. Appreciate you guys for popping in and joining, as we will be here now every Monday and Wednesday at 8 p.m. here on Buckeye Huddle. Buckeye Huddle Primetime. Rod Farva. Zwick was awful that game, hence why he got benched, got put back in and fumbled. Yeah, I probably shouldn't have even brought that up, man. We're bringing up bad memories here. Yes. So the reason Clemson is called Death Valley is because, what the heck is Howard's Rock? Frank Howard, their coach. Somebody brought him a rock from Death Valley, and that's what Howard's Rock is, that sits out, and that's what they rub when they run down the hill for the 25 most exciting seconds in college football, whatever they call it when they run down, which maybe at night, I wasn't at a night game. At night, it might be more exciting. It wasn't incredibly exciting. Richie Dubs been to LSU 4 times. My gosh. That's crazy. Do you live down there, Richie? I've always wanted to go. I planned a trip tentatively with a couple of my buddies, but we didn't end up going because one of my buddies got divorced like Well, he like moved out of his house before it happened, and we didn't end up going. Tora, what's up, bro? How you been? Good to see you. All right, guys. I do appreciate you so much for joining me here on our debut show on Buckeye Huddle Primetime. Again, we'll be back on Wednesday. We'll talk some more Buckeyes. We will be here at 8 p.m. Right on the dot. And I appreciate you all so much. Please have a great night, and I'll talk to you soon. Buckeye Huddle out.